So I have been battling this feeling lately, in regards to Trump. Now I voted for Trump, but it seems to me that just everything that he campaigned on, and arguably the entire way that he ran during his first term, he's done largely what I would classify as a 180. It's things that I'm just like, who are you, bro? Feel like somebody is controlling your behavior. So I decided to use an medieval astrology technique called horary. I swear by it. I use it constantly. It's essentially the chart of a question. At the moment I have a question, I note the time and I cast the chart for that exact time and place that I have it. It's used for yes and no answers, but in this case, and sometimes just depending on the chart, you have to be very careful with the second part. But in this case, I used, is Trump compromised? And if so, by whom? It's the if so, by whom that you kind of have to, you have to caution yourself. The chart will speak to it occasionally if it's there. All right. In horary, each house represents a different area of the question. This was the chart that got cast right here. The 10th house always represents heads of state, kings, leaders, things of that, people in power. So in this case, Trump, the cusp, the 10th house being the cusp of Capricorn, and Capricorn's lord is always Saturn. So therefore, in this question, Trump is signified by Saturn. Everybody got that? Everybody understand? Okay, cool. An enemy or somebody who might be compromising Trump can only be represented by one of three houses, and that's going to be the 12th house, which is the house of hidden enemies or self-undoing. The 9th house, which is going to be foreign powers, foreign heads of state. Or the 7th house, which is open enemies or open people that we are aware of, people that are known in this story. One, I gotta just note how easy this chart is to judge, right? Sometimes they are not. Oftentimes they are not. But this one is just smack you in your face. We are looking at a scenario where the 9th house of foreign lands, foreign leaders, foreign entities is the cusp of which is Sagittarius. The Lord of Sagittarius is Jupiter. We also see that the 12th house cusp sits at Pisces. And because we're using Regiomontanus, which is required in horary astrology, that is always the house system in which you use, how it falls is that the 12th house, which is Pisces, and Pisces is also ruled by Jupiter. What does this mean? This means that the foreign entities, foreign lands, foreign nations, foreign leaders, and the hidden enemies are one and the same. That's extraordinary, especially given the fact that Trump, which is signified by Saturn right here, happens to reside under the control of the foreign/hidden enemy. This entity, the controller in this regard, he resides in the hidden part, so it's not supposed to be known, and I'm using hidden with air quotes because I'm more on that in a second. This is a smack you in your face, yes. For good or bad or worse, Aspect of horary that we have to consider is the condition of a planet. Depending on where a planet resides and what sign that it resides, not house, in what sign that it resides in, that determines its condition, okay? It can be either in a good condition, a neutral condition, or a bad condition. Bad condition, we call that in detriment. Saturn, when it sits in Aries, because it sits at the 9th degree of Aries, as we can see right there, okay? Saturn in Aries is probably one of the worst possible placements. Saturn in detriment's bad. That's a bad way to be, okay? In a chart overall, but especially for Saturn, obviously. Saturn in detriment is where restriction becomes chaos, where authority becomes instability. Saturn in detriment works against its own best interest. It's not in control of itself. It is very weakened in this state. And it's not lost on me that the 12th house, because Saturn also resides in the 12th house, in detriment, that is a placement that screams not in control, working against its own self-interest. It's the house of hidden enemies. It's the house of self-undoing. It is the house of self-destruction and overall secretly working against the greater good or the overall good. It's bad all the way. It's bad all the way, you guys. Donezo. That's gotta be the worst of it, right? Absolutely not. It actually gets worse. Like, quite a bit worse. Because now we have to look at the condition of Jupiter. All right. Jupiter resides right there in Cancer. Does anybody in the back know what Jupiter in Cancer, what condition that would make Jupiter in? If you said exaltation, you would be correct. And exaltation is the very, very best place for any planet to be. It's in its exaltation. That's a great place for Jupiter to be. It's powerful. It has tons of capability to do whatever it wants to do. And I'll be damned if it's not effective. And worse, even still, Jupiter resides in the 4th house. Okay? The 4th house is the house of roots, foundations, the core, the end of the matter. Jupiter, in its exaltation, at the root, this is not some sort of fly-by-night interference that's like just decided to, cause some problems. This is an entity that has essentially, again, in public is a foreign interest, right? In private, in secret, it's a controlling, destructive force. It's embedded at the root. And not something that is fly-by-night, that just out of nowhere just came to be. This is something that's been operating for a very long time, and it has embedded itself very deep. It's not something that can just be cut out. This is a metastasized cancer. This is down to the blood. This is something that chemo cannot just zap away. This is like you got 3 months to live. Kiss your ass goodbye. That is the level of control that this thing has. That this entity, this controller has. Wait. There's still more. Next thing that we always have to look at, as per tradition in horary, is going to be the moon, okay? The moon will represent the question itself. It's actually a method of determining the accuracy of this particular chart and whether to continue judgment or not. We've already kind of judged. It was already spot on. That said, if it speaks to the situation, we know we're dead on. This is an accurate chart. Where does the moon reside? In the 10th house. What is this question about? Leaders. Our leader. My leader. America's leader. The moon, which represents the question, happens to be in the house. This is about the question. That is like literally as ding, 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 hello, I'm here, I'm accurate, right? That's what that means. Also represents the flow of events in regards to this question. So we always have to look at what it's applying to or moving towards and or separating from, moving away from, okay? Its next aspect, because it moves this way, right? The moon's next aspect very soon, it's very, very close right now, but very soon is going to be in direct opposition, an aspect, which is a negative aspect. We don't like oppositions, but it's in direct opposition to what? Jupiter, which is what? The public foreign interest / hidden enemy. So, what does that mean? That means the reality of this situation, the answer to this question is becoming increasingly obvious, and it's a problem. And it's not just because in regards to, even though the 1st house represents the court or me, the person asking the question, I asked it from the perspective, even though I'm the one asking it, I asked it from everybody's perspective, because it's not just my president, it's everybody in this country's president. It's America's president, right? So it involves y'all, right? It involves Americans. So, not just to me, but to America, it's becoming real freaking obvious what's going on here and what this situation is. And it's going to end up becoming a very big problem for America, what this entity is doing. There's going to be an increase of a dislike. Let's just say it that way. Increasing dislike, rejection of this. Finally, to this part of the question, and if so, by whom? Okay, now again, horary, that's not really horary's bag. It doesn't really answer this definitive place. It definitely helps in terms of locations, especially with missing objects, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. That said, it can give us clues. It can give us not an exact, like, pinpoint, like, ding, 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 this is us, but it can give us lots of clues, and it does, so we're going to look at them. Jupiter, again, we've established that is the controller, right? The compromiser. It resides in Cancer. Now let's talk about what Cancer, some keywords that represent Cancer, right? Because that's where this entity is located, right? Cancer, some words that we can associate with that. Gulf Sea, the East, Middle East especially, okay? Cancer absolutely represents these things in my opinion. It also represents ancient tradition, maybe even biblically, probably biblically ancient. A wealthy people that have a tendency to use money to change hearts, to change emotion, to get things done through emotional money. And very, very established ancient roots, very, very tight-knit community, very, you could even argue an ethno state of some kind, sometimes an over emotional reaction, a place that likes to nanny other people. Okay, control other people's words, thoughts, actions. We're not talking about a great entity here, or not at least not for us. Maybe for itself, absolutely, but like for us, you can make the argument not so much. Can't pinpoint it exactly, but I'd make the argument that it's either Gulf state money, or Israel. I mean, it's one of these. It looks like one of these a hell of a lot more than it looks like Russia or China. That's all I'm saying. That said, I went ahead and I looked up, because I don't know if y'all knew this. Countries have their own birth charts. America has a birth chart. I looked this up really quick. As we can see, the birth chart of the nation of Israel, if we notice, the 10th house cusp, or the place of its power, its overarching control, its overarching power, its overarching authority, the cusp of Israel is in what sign? It's in Cancer. Well, what do you know? Again, that's not has anything to do with the horary technique. I just find that odd. Anywho, tell me what y'all think. If anybody has some suggestions or any questions you would like me to do a horary chart on, you holler at me, okay? Hopefully it'll be a little bit better than this.